All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, spookiest unsolved mysteries in all of American naval history. We're talking about the chilling disappearance of the USS Cyclops. 309. Just let that number sink in. That's how many people, crew, passengers, just vanished along with their ship. To this day, it's the single largest loss of life in US naval history that didn't happen in combat. And this was the last anyone ever officially heard from them. Weather fair, all well. I mean, it sounds totally normal, right? Completely routine. There is absolutely nothing in this message that even hints at the horror that was just around the corner. So, this is the big question, isn't it? I mean, how does a massive 542-foot naval ship, that's longer than a football field, by the way, loaded with heavy cargo and hundreds of people, how does something that big just disappear without a trace? Okay, to try and figure this out, we have to go back to March 4th, 1918, and yep, you guessed it, we're heading deep into the infamous Bermuda Triangle. So the Cyclops was loaded down with 11,000 tons of manganese ore, and then poof, gone. No SOS, no wreckage, no survivors, nothing. You know, investigators looked at everything. A giant row wave, maybe a catastrophic failure because the cargo shifted. But think about it, any of those things would have left a huge debris field, but there was nothing. Not an oil slick, not a single life raft. It's like the ship and every single person on board were just erased. But here's where the story gets really weird. The strangeness didn't just start the day it vanished. Nope. To understand what might have happened, you really have to look at the man in charge. Meet Commander George Worley. Now, this guy was a character. I mean, who wears a derby hat on duty instead of a proper naval cap? And apparently, he liked to walk the decks in his underwear. So yeah, eccentric. But in the final weeks, that eccentricity, it soured into straight-up paranoia. He was obsessed with the idea of German spies on his ship. And most importantly, he totally ignored his engineers' warnings that the cargo was loaded unevenly and was dangerously unstable. And get this, just a day before they disappeared, Worley makes a sudden, unscheduled stop in Barbados. And he says this to the portmaster: "We're being followed. I know we are. I can feel it." People said he was totally agitated, couldn't focus, and was genuinely convinced that something was hunting his ship. So, naturally, when the ship vanishes, the Navy launches a huge investigation. But instead of finding answers, they just found more questions. And the clues they uncovered? They were just plain bizarre. Okay, clue number 1 comes from a crew member who, luckily for him, got left behind in Barbados. He told investigators that right before they docked, something crazy happened on the bridge. Every single compass just went nuts, spinning wildly, completely out of control, like some giant magnet just passed right under them. So what does our paranoid commander do when his crucial navigation instruments fail? He orders the guy not to log it, tells him it would cause unnecessary panic. Think about that. He knows something is terribly wrong, but he wants it swept under the rug. What was he so afraid of? Okay, if you thought spinning compasses were weird, buckle up. Clue number 2 is even stranger. This comes from another sailor who left the ship earlier in the voyage. He reported seeing these mysterious lights, not in the sky, in the water. And he was clear, these weren't just reflections or bioluminescence. He told the Navy investigators they were definite lights, moving with the ship. They kept pace with this enormous vessel for over an hour. And then they just disappeared, diving deep into the ocean. This next clue, honestly, this is the one that gives me chills. This wasn't some freak one-time accident. You see, the Cyclops had 2 identical sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus. And in 1941, both of them vanished. In the same area, carrying similar cargo, and under the exact same mysterious circumstances. No distress call, no wreckage. I mean, what are the odds of that? So for decades, that's pretty much all the public knew. But the Navy, well, the Navy was sitting on some secrets. And when those classified files were finally opened, the whole story got a whole lot darker. It turns out, Commander Worley's paranoia, maybe it wasn't paranoia at all. He was actually filing secret reports to naval intelligence for months. He used this very official-sounding term, unusual atmospheric phenomena. He wrote about sudden, bizarre fog banks, those recurring compass problems, and get this, time discrepancies, where the ship's clocks would just fall out of sync. So the Navy knew. They knew something weird was going on out there. Okay, this next part is an absolute bombshell. Decades after the Cyclops vanished, a retired Navy radio operator came forward with an incredible story. He swore that he heard one last, fragmented, desperate message from the ship, hours after that calm all-well signal was sent. And what's more, he was ordered to forget he ever heard it. Just try to imagine hearing this crackling over the radio late at night. Lights beneath us, rising, water, is instruments. I mean, that doesn't sound like a storm, does it? It doesn't sound like a torpedo attack. It sounds like something was coming up from below, something that fried all their instruments in their final moments. So, what are we supposed to make of all this? Well, let's start by looking at the official explanation and why it just doesn't work. For the longest time, the Navy's official story was that it must have been a German U-boat. It makes sense, it was wartime. But there's a huge problem. After the war, when they checked the German records, there were no U-boats anywhere near the Cyclops. Zero. Not to mention, again, a torpedo hit would leave tons of debris and oil. And there was nothing. And then there's this. This is the real gut punch. It's from a letter Commander Worley wrote to his sister, released only recently. It's his final letter, written the day before they sailed into oblivion. The instruments lie, the stars are wrong, and something follows us just beneath the surface. That is not the letter of a man worried about spies or a storm. That's a man who is absolutely terrified of something he can't explain. And this mystery is far from over. In 2015, a sonar search actually found a big wreck down there, but the Navy confirmed it wasn't the Cyclops. And then they added this totally cryptic note that the wreck was subjected to forces inconsistent with normal sinking. What does that even mean? On top of that, modern sealers still report compasses going haywire in that very same patch of ocean. The Navy's official case file? It's still open. So here we are, over 100 years later. No wreckage, no bodies, just a trail of bizarre clues and unsettling testimony. We're left to wonder, what really happened to the USS Cyclops? And maybe the more important question, the one that really sticks with you, is what was that something that was following them just beneath the surface?